Welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to FPCI. Today's public lecture is brought to you by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, and today it's a special public lecture. FPCI is the largest foreign policy group in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia, and in Indo-Pacific, we have over 100,000 people in our network, and we're glad that you're joining us here today in person. We have around 100 participants coming from various universities. I got the list here. We have from BINUS University, UIN Jakarta, UPN Veteran Jakarta, Universitas Kristen Indonesia, Universitas Nasional, and many others. We also have our colleagues from press, lecturers, I see, and some other institutions. Welcome. Not to forget, we would also like to greet our participants that are tuning in online from our YouTube live stream. We have over 10 countries joining, not only from Indonesia. We have from Nigeria, Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, US, Ghana, Singapore, China, New Zealand, and others. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, today's public lecture, as I said, is a special public lecture as we have a very special, distinguished speaker today with us already joining here. We would like to extend a warm welcome to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Your Excellency Wojciech Gerwel. Welcome to FPCI. We would also like to extend our warm welcome to the Ambassador of Poland to Indonesia, Her Excellency Beata Stozycka. Welcome, Ambassador. And last but not least, our senior fellow as the host of today's event, Ambassador Sumadi Broto-Diningrat. Welcome. Also, our colleagues from Polish embassy and from Poland as well. Welcome to FPCI. To begin today's event, we would like to first display a brief video about Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. Please enjoy. Introduction to FPCI. To begin today's event, I would like to invite Ambassador Sumadi Broto-Diningrat as the host of today's event to deliver an opening remark to us all. Please, Ambassador.
Selamat siang, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam sehat untuk semuanya. A very good afternoon, Minister, Ambassador. May I first I start the meeting by welcoming Ambassador Wojciech, Wojciech Gerwel, yes. And of course, my good friend, Ambassador Beata Stosinka. Of course. Once again, I hope that you enjoy your stay in Indonesia, in Jakarta already for 2 days. And now we are here listening to you, yes. I would like also to thank you very much for sparing your precious time and spending some of your schedule for us here in our nest, the FPCI. I think we already introduced you our institution, the FPCI, so at least you have some glimpses on who we are and what we are doing. And of course, you will have in front of us. This is what I'm happy to be here joining the FPCI, because the majority of our constituents or stakeholders are young. So each time I'm coming and having something here, I feel back younger again. So this is one thing that make me happy to be here, and I hope you too. Even if you are still much younger than I, but you still feel much younger again among these youngsters. I would like to share with information with my audience here that the minister was here basically to chair the bilateral joint commission meeting between Poland and Indonesia. And I would like to share with all of you that actually between Indonesia and Poland there's already a long formal relationship. It's almost 70 years, 68 years to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. And even in the first 30 years, we even managed to pass through what then was an Iron Curtain to be friends. It is it's not that easy to pass through that Iron Curtain, but once you pass, then you get a good friend like our friend from Poland. And for me, myself, it's not surprising, but perhaps for many will be surprised, because you come to a country and suddenly you see your flag is upside down. So, but it's not surprising, because it's happened that we are like a twin brothers, only that we put the color in reverse. So this is just make our two countries much closer. From the information that I got from my foreign ministry friends, your meeting was very good. You have already assessed the progress of our relationship, and at least once that I got some information is that for the past 4 years or even 5 years, our two-way trade has already consistently increasing, and even last year we passed already $1 billion. So this is what to call it, a milestone that is very important, so that perhaps after passing this milestone, the road will be much more easier again. Other cooperations you have already discussed, and what I heard is some problem has been solved, and some new initiative has been taken. And of course, if you look around, we are among the young. The most interesting for us is, of course, our cooperations in higher education. We have for quite some years already a cooperation between in the area of higher education. And here, if we enlarge a little bit the scope of these cooperations, covering cooperation among think tanks, then we would be very happy, and we stand ready to offer our cooperations on whatever cooperation we might or we can do. At least if you can introduce us with one of a good think tank from Poland, we stand ready to start to cooperate. And you can already talk to the prospective partner that we may have about us through this video. So I think what your audience here would like to see is, of course, the promising and optimistic future of our bilateral relationship. But I would say that I think you will not be able to escape some questions raised to you, not only out of curiosity, but out of humanitarian instinct in trying to not in expressing attention to the problem that your region is having, and Poland being one of the frontier country is, of course, had a lot of things to share with us in terms of humanity concern and other. And I think, as our president has expressed in Hiroshima very lately in the G7, what Indonesia wants the most is that peace in your region, peace in Ukraine, sooner rather than later. I will not steal your show in speaking longer. I would like to invite you, Minister, to give your lecture to this very enthusiastic listener. I give you the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Your Excellency Sumadi Broto-Diningrat. Thank you for pronouncing my name really well. I don't know if I reciprocated or and Your Excellency Barbara Stoczyńska, and we have I have a director with me, Mrs. Barbara Szymanowska from the Asia and Pacific Department. I first of all thank you very much for having me over. It's really a pleasure to come here. I was briefed by my ambassador about the quality of this think tank, and I'm honored to be here and very excited. I worked in some think tanks in the past, and I always miss it. The kind of the job as a diplomat, is some thinking, but also a lot of the kind of ongoing projects and so on. So I sometimes miss this kind of thinking environment also, when you can really slow down and really think things through at a deeper level. I had I will show you a proof. I have a speech prepared. It's like it's all those pages, but I apologizing to the speechwriter. I think I will. I prefer to make it more interactive. I think because I'm curious about your questions and about what you are interested in, and I want to address the things that really you would like to ask, and also. Let me start with some random thoughts that come. But I think when I speak from the heart and more in an ad hoc way, maybe it will be also more interesting for you. It's and I apologize if I don't make any sense. I have a little bit of a jet lag. I had actually 2 nights ago I slept very well, but last night I just couldn't sleep at all. So it's I was looking at this picture. It's kind of funny because this was done at our ambassador's meeting, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm a little bit tired there. And it was also, and it was a sleepless night, and they took the picture. I was a little bit, and here I am also after sleepless. It's haunting me a little bit, but I wanted to maybe just to first of all to congratulate all of you on this Indonesia's tremendous development. I had been posted to Southeast Asia twice. Altogether, I spent 11 years in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam. My last posting was as ambassador. But I came to Indonesia a number of times, traveled across Java, Bali, many beautiful places. And I just came to Jakarta now after, I don't know, about 10 years maybe. And I cannot believe my eyes how the city has grown and developed. So I know this is, it's just, that's what I expected 10 years ago, but to really see it firsthand, I just wanted to express my congratulations to all of you, because it's the energy and the entrepreneurship of all of the government and all of the Indonesian society. But just to let you know, because maybe not all of you are aware that we have been also developing in Poland at an incredible pace. Over the last 30 years, we have been the fastest growing economy in Europe, and by far, actually. So, for instance, your GDP growth in 2022 was 5.3%, and ours was, I think, 5.2%. So it's for European kind of standards, that's really extraordinary. But this has been really going on, this development over the last 30 years, and I think by now there is a situation where the image that people have of Poland, I think, kind of does not match reality, because I can see a very young generation here in this think tank, but maybe your parents' generation will still remember Poland behind the Iron Curtain, communist Poland, and kind of gray and gloomy, and we also had a movie industry that kind of fed this kind of image, Kieślowski and so on, the very kind of dark and gloomy pictures of reality in some sense. And but actually, I saw a study recently that in Europe there is a biggest difference in the changed perceptions for people who come to a country, their expectations, and when they leave the country. It's in Poland, actually, because when you come to Poland now, you will see that it's you will see Warsaw, and you see this skyscrapers and very efficient public transportation and green spaces and kind of a smart city, and then the medieval towns and old towns, and it's just a very dynamic, very good place to live. Very dynamic economy, and I hope that I welcome all of you to come and explore Poland. But this is a little bit of a PR opportunity for me to to say just something that is obvious to me, but being so far away, I think probably most of you have not had a chance to visit yet. But I hope you will have a chance. Polish society is very welcoming. We have a tradition. I am admiring the Indonesian tradition, being united in diversity, and the religious tolerance, and all these things that you are proud of, and rightly proud of. And I don't know if you know that we have a similar tradition dating back centuries. It was a republic of many nations for centuries, where there were under one Commonwealth, under one republic, there were the Poles, the Lithuanians, partly the Ukrainians and Belarusians and Armenians and Jews and Germans in the cities, and there were actually since dating back to some 15th century at least, there were the Muslim communities in Poland continuously living there, and we cherish this kind of this history of tolerance and this. In our country, unfortunately, the Second World War changed a lot of things. We were brutally invaded, and despite our fighting against the invaders, there was more than 5 million, between 5 and 6 million Polish citizens were, including half of them more the Polish Jews. Were murdered during the war, and now you might have a sense that we are a quite homogeneous society, looking kind of similar, But first of all, it has been changing over the last, 15 years or so. You can really see that there is a much more diversity in the streets of Polish cities. But secondly, even in the small towns where there is still people look similar, I think in our hearts we have this ethos of this tolerant multicultural republic really still carried through our literature, through our books, and so on. So it's a so just as a kind of word of introduction, because I think there are similarities. Yesterday we visited the mosque and the cathedral in the same time. It was very impressive. But it really kind of it rings very close to my heart, because it's something that I cherish in our own tradition in Poland. But sorry, because this is not a foreign policy talk that I have given so far. There is really maybe two dimensions I should mention, or maybe because one is the bilateral dimension. I should maybe say a few words about our consultations yesterday and what we have been talking about. And the second one is the kind of the turbulent things that are happening on the international sphere, right? And especially in our region regarding Russia's invasion against Ukraine. I just wonder in which order I should what I should mention first. Maybe let me start with bilateral relations. I think we conducted the political consultation. It was actually political. It was not an economic commission. It's a political consultation. It's a regular exchange, no? That every few years countries have visiting each other. Due to COVID, it was a little bit delayed. I'm very happy to be here, because we see in Indonesia a very special partner, very important partner in Asia and in Southeast Asia. We cherish the 68 years of our bilateral cooperation and diplomatic relations, and over the time we have developed a very trustworthy relationship, and we see a lot of potential, especially that I mentioned already, our fast economic growth, and we witness likewise the tremendous growth in Indonesia. So I think the opportunities are tremendous, and in the business area there are certain areas that are we have developed a particular strength. For instance, I'll give you a few examples. In general, we have a very balanced economy. So the reason I think why we have grown so strongly over the years, without really facing the kind of a long-term recession or turbulence like many other European countries face, is that we have a very well balanced economy. We are not entirely exports oriented, but we have a significant export sector. We have a heavy industry. We have not moved all to services, so we have kept the heavy industry. But we also moved to services. We developed a very strong services sector, whereas at the same time kept a very robust agricultural sector. And there is. So when the different economic turbulence came, the Polish economy was very resilient. Besides, Polish companies are generally quite conservative about. They are very careful about finances. So they always prepared for the worst case scenario, and they were able to weather the storms. And at the same time, the Polish people are incredibly entrepreneurial. I think this is something that connects us also in Indonesia and in Poland. I can see a lot of kind of an entrepreneurial spirit here. I saw a similar entrepreneurial spirit in Vietnam, for instance, and I think, and on top of it, we have an incredibly well educated and skilled labor force. So we have a long academic tradition. The Jagiellonian University in Kraków is one of the oldest universities in Europe, dating back to the mid-14th century. Together with Charles University in Prague, it's the oldest university in East Central Europe, and so it's with Copernicus being educated there and so on. So it's a long tradition, but the communist time was it did not damage the hard sciences. It was always, we had continued to have a robust tradition in the hard sciences. It was a bit worse for social sciences and humanities, but the last 30 years we have really managed to catch up with the kind of physical infrastructure, which was quite a challenge during the communist times. So today, Polish universities are at a kind of at a European top-notch level, and we have this kind of, maybe I'm saying this because I can see a lot of young people, so I am again veering away from the foreign affairs for a second, but I wanted you to encourage you to explore opportunities to come to Poland at all levels. We offer this kind of top-notch European degrees, and especially also we have 350 universities, more than that. We have around 800 programs taught in English, and the quality is really high, and then you get this kind of European experience at the heart of Europe, and at the same time it's the cost of living is still quite very much lower. Then the PhD programs are very much available, accessible. We treat this foreign students the same as we do the Polish students. We have many scholarships, Banach scholarship, and so on, so we welcome you to explore, but also on all different levels. But coming back to I was talking about the economy. So I was saying that the economy is very diversified, education, entrepreneurship, labor force, and so on. So we've been really developing in a very robust way, and we developed many niche capacities. So, for instance, in the IT sector, we not only caught up with many of our partners in the kind of Western world, but to be honest, we developed even stronger capacities than many of them. I'll give you an example. By the Deloitte, there was a Deloitte survey recently, and Poland came fourth when it comes to the IT capabilities of the Polish banking sector, for instance. So it's but this is just an example. But we are very strong in fintech, in cybersecurity. These days it's very, very important. The agri-tech, med-tech, and so on, all these high-tech sectors. So when we were conducting political consultations, we delved into the opportunities that are engendered through this kind of cooperation in different sectors. Actually, our trade, I must say, by our statistics, has grown even more than the ambassador referred to. By last year, by our measures, it surpassed $2 billion. So it's double the amount, what it was just 3 years ago. So the dynamic is really encouraging. But we also discussed here opportunities in educational cooperation, but also in many different areas. But I think I have said enough about the bilateral relation. Maybe I should, because I want to be open to questions. If you have some specific question, I'm very happy to answer. I'm just looking all the time at the business card. I was making notes when the ambassador was speaking, but there was not enough space to make to make a lot of notes. But maybe now the global order. But overall, maybe to sum up the bilateral, we have been witnessing Indonesia's tremendous rise and the economic potential, but also your role in the region, your role in the regional integration efforts, in the development of ASEAN and ASEAN centrality, and we really cheer for that. I think we are members of the European Union, and you are members of ASEAN, and in those turbulent days internationally, we share many values and attachment to rules-based order, and our countries share attachment to democratic principles, and we we see a tremendous benefits of the EU and ASEAN working hand in hand to resolve many of the global challenges that you very well know: public health, climate change, economic resilience, global supply chains. You know, all the kind of long list of things that we can work on. As Poland, we were actually very much always very supportive of the development of the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy, and we see a great potential in this regard. Now to the situation of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. You know, I was giving a lecture just maybe a month ago at the Warsaw School of Economics, and when I came to the podium, and I at that time I had to give a spontaneous speech, and there was and it occurred to me suddenly. I was stood there in the kind of dark. This is much brighter the room, but I stood in a dark room. I you know, I like history of ideas, philosophy, and all this stuff, and classical kind of learning. You have the one of the classics of European civilization. It's Dante, and he's you know, he starts Inferno. He's the kind of famous classical book with this kind of reference. Halfway through life, I woke myself in the dark forest, kind of, and he meant something else. I'm just paraphrasing for my purposes, but a little bit I felt when Russia invaded Ukraine like this. You know, the world seemed much more that we overtook. It seemed that we as the world, as international community, managed to overcome to this kind of dark forest situation where a Security Council member at the heart of the UN system brutally invades another country without being provoked, you know, without Ukraine posing any kind of threat that it would invade Russia, or without there being a government that, you know, the Russian disinformation often points as that it's a Nazi government or something like this. That was a complete nonsense. It was peaceful people without any intention to harm Russia, trying to build their own sovereign country, and then suddenly, you know, such a powerful country as Russia invades it. So it's a little bit like a dark forest situation. But, you know, famous American poet wrote about the kind of two roads merging in the forest. You know, which one you are about to take. And I think we are facing this kind of situation. We're at a pivotal moment right now, where, as an international community, we either will take the road towards safeguarding the principles of the UN Charter and all the principles of international law that we developed, and or we will go back to a world which we really escaped from at such a high price before. And in Poland, we have a certain, you know, responsibility to remind, I think, about this stark choice, because if you remember, those principles of the UN Charter were created a little bit by a miracle, right? Not really a miracle, but it was considering how turbulent the world history has been, and the wars, endless wars, you know, through history. The fact that the countries from all over the world managed to come together and sign UN Charter is just we have to really treasure it. And in Poland, we realized at what cost it came. You know, it came after the Second World War, as I mentioned, how many lives were sacrificed in Poland and all over you know, Europe and the world, and yet we are now at a place where we are challenged to, as an international community, to safeguard these principles, and they are threatened because if you note what President Putin was demanding before the war also, and has been saying, you know, and what Russia has been saying ever since, it's a kind of a return to the kind of a 19th century situation of imperial powers, right, and spheres of influence, and what is said in the UN Charter about sovereignty, territorial integrity, not changing borders with force, not threatening, you know, the use of force. Now we are either we defend those principles, or we face the danger that it is Russia that will define how the world will look like, you know, in the future. So it's from the we deeply sense in East Central Europe that this is the pivotal situation. But I mentioned the global ramification of the situation, but maybe I should also tell you a few words about you know, we are a country that about the our regional perspective in Central Europe, and also about Ukraine itself. We are as Poland, we are neighboring not only in Ukraine that was invaded by Russia, but we are also Russia's neighbor. And on top, we are a neighbor of Belarus that is de facto used by Russia for you know, for many military purposes too. And if you are Polish, you know, if you are having the experience that I had, you would witness, you know, the crowds of Ukrainian mothers and children escaping the war, and there were some 10 million Ukrainians that crossed our border, but not all of them stayed. You know, a few million stayed in Poland, refugees, and also there were Ukrainians living in Poland before. But in Ukraine you have also millions of people internally displaced, and if I don't know how much you followed our humanitarian effort, but in Poland we gave the Ukrainian refugees the kind of the same. We treated them the same as Polish citizens, so we gave them the same social benefits and so on. So, for instance, like all the other Polish people, they have access to free education, they have access to free healthcare, they benefit from the same social benefits. For instance, the support. Every child in Poland, a family gets a certain support for every child. The Ukrainians are treated in exactly the same way. But there was no, by OECD measure actually, in 2022, we spent 1.5% of GDP on humanitarian assistance. I do not want to, because I don't remember the precise number, but I think it was 11 or 13% of Polish families took Ukrainian families to their own homes to live with, whereas 87% of people were directly involved in giving humanitarian support to the refugees. But you know, the determination among the Polish people is not waiting. It is tremendous, because we remember what Russian oppression means. We have this very sad history And we have in our families, great many Polish families have this memory, you know, of imprisonment, of rape, of misery that the Russian oppression brought about. And it was not only Poland; it's the countries of East Central Europe, all those countries that really experience this kind of severe oppression. They feel the same, and we are really aware of it, not only even in East Central Europe, but even in Scandinavian countries that are closer, right? There was I don't know if you're aware, but there was a war between also Soviet Union and Finland, for instance. So the Finns were also deeply aware of the threats. But this willingness to provide humanitarian support was just very obvious for Polish people, because they knew what the Ukrainian people were facing, and then there is Poland is also a hub for international assistance. No? So when it comes to, for instance, energy, you know, the Russians are, for instance, have been bombing the energy infrastructure, right? And this indiscriminately, right? Because it can stop the functioning of hospitals, of schools, and so on. In Poland, we established a kind of a hub for assistance to rebuild the energy grid. We are a hub for military deliveries, for humanitarian assistance, and so on. So for instance, by providing a great number of Starlinks, we ensure that the internet functions in Ukraine, and that's very important because, as I said, hospitals need the internet. Often schools need the internet. Many children are internally displaced; they are doing online learning, so it's a tremendous, really tremendous effort on our part. But you can really count on Poland that we will be there for Ukraine as long as is needed, and Ukrainians know that they can count on us. I am now there is a whole dimension of European security architecture and how this conflict has affected it. Maybe I want to open to questions. Maybe I'll just say one thing, that it's a kind of a very strange thing to understand President Putin kind of you know, whatever goals he had in invading Ukraine, but look at the results. You know, he at least, you know, he was complaining about NATO, but in effect now NATO is enlarging to Finland and Sweden, and there's more resolve to accept other members, and there are other members that you know, that even more want to join, not to invade Russia, not to limit Russians' freedom to be themselves and really develop their wonderful culture that they have. No, we all know their literature and their achievements in cultural sphere. Let them live in peace, and we want to. Nobody more than Poles really wants to have Russia as a friendly neighbor, but we want to have the same in return. You know, we are sovereign countries, we are nations, and despite what President Putin was saying, that Ukraine is not really a nation, I mean, he's profoundly mistaken. It is a nation. Look how they are fighting, so you have the countries of East Central Europe want to be secure. NATO is even more important for them. We are investing tremendously in defense because of what Russia has done. You can see the transatlantic link very much strengthened, and the awareness in Europe of the role of the United States, without whose support, you know, the first weeks of the war, you know, you might have evolved in a very different way. So anyways, maybe I finish like this, and if you have some questions, I'm open to answer them.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Wojciech Gerwel, for the already informative introductory remark. Deputy Minister, you may sit on the right seat and we'll get the discussion going after this. Thank you. Right. The Deputy Ministers say that they welcome opportunities for us to go there. Can I see some hands who wants to go to Poland? Ambassador, we see so many hands. All right, we'll get the discussion going. So I'll invite the moderator, the co-director of research and analysis of FPCI, Esther Tamara, to take over the floor. Please.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenny. And firstly, I'd like to thank Minister for giving us and sharing with us your candid thoughts. Although you have prepared a speech, but we really appreciated your honest thoughts at the podium earlier. We have about 1 hour until the end of this event. So I'd like to get started immediately with questions from the audience. And we see a lot of hands. So I'll take one from the gentleman on the left, and then one gentleman on the at the back, and the lady in white here in the middle. If the committee please assist with that. Please introduce yourself, your name, your university or affiliation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Wojciech Gerwel, the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister of Poland, for sharing with us the Polish foreign policy perspective in the current global landscape nowadays. I am Andrew. I am from Universitas Kristen Indonesia, or Christian University of Indonesia. And I have a question to Your Excellency. After Russia invasions of Ukraine began on February 24, 2022, how then did Poland, as part of NATO and the European Union, reorganize foreign relations with Russia? Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Andrew. And then we'll take the second question.
Okay, good afternoon, and Your Excellency Wojciech Gerwel. My name is Alia Satya from the Binus University. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the opportunity that is given to me to ask the question. As previously mentioned, the relationship between Poland and Indonesia has existed for a long time. What are Poland's perspective on the idea of Indo-Pacific as a new regional? What are the effects for Poland, especially in the political economic situation? Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question for this round.
I just missed the second part of the question.
So what is Poland's perspective in Indo-Pacific as a new regional hub, and especially in the political and economic cooperation part?
Okay, thank you and good afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Sandis Ravaldanis and I'm from FPCI Chapter Jayabaya. I have prepared one question, and how does Poland engage with Indonesia within the framework of regional organization such as ASEAN or the United Nations? Thank you.
Those three are already very substantive questions, Minister. So over to you.
Yes, I can. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I thank you very much for this question to Mr. Andrew. The first question, you know, our relationship with Russia has been profoundly affected by the invasion, but at the same time, you should remember about the context. Russia invaded Ukraine already in 2014, and so it was maybe did not catch the attention to the same degree of countries around the world, but we in Poland, we really were very realistic about the situation. We actually have been realistic even earlier. Already in 2008, our president at the time, Lech Kaczynski, when he went to Georgia, you know, there was a time when Russia invaded Georgia in 2008, and he was warning that you know, if we do not wake up, kind of, if we do not draw a line against this kind of illegitimate behavior, then there is going to be that there is next Russia will invade Ukraine, and then maybe the Baltic states, and then maybe Poland. So we were very much preparing. You know, we have been first of all much more aware of the need to invest in the defense sector than most other countries in Europe. So we spend, you know, more than 2% of GDP, then 2.5% on defense, and now this year it's far more even. And we were building energy infrastructure. You know, at the time when some countries that were much more optimistic about Russia, even like developing the energy dependencies, building, you know, the Nord Stream pipeline and so on, we were actually diversifying. So we were building a Baltic pipe through the Baltic Sea from Poland through Denmark to the North Sea from the Norwegian gas fields. We were developing LNG terminals, the one in Świnoujście. We are actually developing another one in Gdańsk, in the north of Poland. We were developing interconnectors for gas with other countries. Now we opened one, you know, with Lithuania, with Slovakia, and so on. So we were in many ways, you know, at the least surprised in Europe, and the most prepared, I would say. So maybe the change was maybe less than in some kind of fundamental foreign policy shake-up, like the Zeitenwende that Chancellor Scholz was referring to in Germany. It was a profound change in their policies, whereas we have more of a continuity perspective. But nonetheless, you know, the invasion is like a full-scale invasion is of this dimension. It's just catastrophic. So we responded in working very much with our allies, with our partners in the European Union, but also like-minded countries in the G7, right, framework and so on, imposing sanctions on Russia, for instance. So we imposed 10 rounds of sanctions. We are working now on the 11th, and you know, the vast array of sanctions, you know, from stopping the air flights through European airspace, through individual sanctions on people who are directly involved in Russia in this kind of military campaign, and to you know, across many different fields. And we are all the time determined, as long as Russia continues to tighten this kind of sanction grip ever more, so that we do not allow Russia to develop resources to just continue this war. But we also provided a lot of military equipment, as many of you may say. We were actually some of the first countries, you know, that reacted very quickly. We did not believe Ukraine will collapse, because we are right next to Ukraine. We know the Ukrainians. They are very proud people. They are. We know them personally. You know, as I said, there were some 2 million Ukrainians already working in Poland and living in Poland before. They are our neighbors. They are our friends. We know how they think. They are. Somebody else who looks down at them is really a racist. It's not. They are people full of dignity, and that deserve the same dignity as Indonesians do, or the Poles do. And so we knew they would fight, and so we were very quick to provide them with you know, robust support, like, you know, for instance, the UK or the United States and so on. And so we provided hundreds of tanks. We even like broke certain taboos, right? We were the first ones who provided a Western-made Leopard tank, or we were the first ones together with Slovakia who provided the jets, the MiG jets and so on. So we have been, not to mention a whole array of other things. But this, we maintain diplomatic relations with Russia. They are, of course, at the low point, but we do have embassies.
May I ask a follow-up question on
Yes,
that?
yes.
I'm sure all of us here who are part of the FPCI, we are monitoring the G7 meetings at Hiroshima, and there are a lot of dynamics playing there. President Zelensky was there. Our president was there. Just wondering, can you comment on that based on what you have heard and observed about what are the next steps for Ukraine? Yeah.
Yes, I will share some observations, but please have in mind that I have been traveling now intensely, and also my schedule in Indonesia has been so busy. I haven't really been able to follow any news. But I would like to underline how important it is that President Zelensky has this opportunity to meet with the leaders of the G7 and including your president, yes, and it's just it's also an important sign from the G7 leaders about about how they and the like-minded countries how they it's a gesture of support, and very important gesture of support, but yes, so I guess that's there are many dimensions to it, but I guess we could talk till tomorrow. But let me answer the two questions, and we can come back maybe with madam asked the second question about the Indo-Pacific, and I already mentioned that in Poland we were from the very beginning very much supportive of the EU Indo-Pacific strategy. There are a few countries in Europe that have their own Indo-Pacific strategies, like Germany, Netherlands, France, right? I know that there are a few more working on it. The EU, of course, but that's that we were supporting. We do not have our own Indo-Pacific strategy, but it doesn't mean that it's not a priority area for us. And it's and there are many levels of cooperation. Yes, if you look at the EU and the ASEAN, these are the two international entities and organizations that have the most robust and ambitious integration project. No? So we understand we are united in diversity. It's never an easy decision-making process in those organizations, but in a sense, working out policies, we are effective in the long term, but it's not not always a smooth process. But I think that in ASEAN it's in many ways similar. But we do share attachment to certain principles and values. I know the principle of ASEAN, for instance, the sovereignty, right, territorial integrity. It's at the heart of the ASEAN principles, and it's also very much shared by us. But so there's this EU dimension. There are, as I mentioned, there are many things that we face in common as a humanity, as challenges. No, I mentioned climate change, but economic, the global economic well-being, right? So global supply chains, but the question of cybersecurity, for instance, right? But there is also so there is the European EU Indo-Pacific strategy has 7 points clearly spelled out, so it's easy to just look up. We agree with all those dimensions. And then there was a question about the ASEAN and the UN, Indonesia, and the cooperation between Poland and Indonesia. At the UN, we appreciated your votes in the United Nations General Assembly on the resolutions to condemn Russia's aggression against Ukraine, and I think this was the vast majority of countries in the world in those different resolutions voted to condemn Russia in different dimensions of its very inhumane policies, and we were very glad but not surprised to see Indonesia, such a robust democracy, to really defend the principles of the UN Charter. And there is, of course, like among friends and good, trustworthy partners, there is always like a lot of exchange of support in the UN agencies. So it's an ongoing. I will not delve into details, but we supported each other's candidacies to a number of fora, and even those priority ones for each of our respective countries, and still are talking about further support. So this has been very, very good cooperation. Yeah, I think so.
Great. I want to bring in the questions from our online audience. There's a question here from Reiner from Venus University at our YouTube chat box. Reiner is wondering whether there has been any hindrance due to the Russia's invasion of Ukraine for further cooperation with countries in Southeast Asia. And if so, how can we prevent future hindrances such as that? And then I have some questions that I'd love to bring from the offline audience. Can I have the lady at the back, at the very back on the right-hand side? And then this gentleman on the right.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Yunita Fajarani from FPCI chapter Jayabaya. I would like to ask about, as you mentioned before, about the similarities between Indonesia and Poland. Are there any programs that you want to collaborate with Indonesia in the meantime? Maybe a cultural diplomacy program such as Poland Cultural Festival in Indonesia. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, Your Excellency Wojciech Gerwel. Now, from what I understand, Poland is very much looking forward to cooperating with Indonesia, especially in the development of railway infrastructure. Now, talking about railway infrastructure, as we all know, Indonesia is very much Java-centric in this field, with recent expansions in Sulawesi and in Kalimantan, and planned expansions in Kalimantan. My question would be, in order to further minimize carbon footprint of train transportation, has there anything that's been done by the Polish government to help developing nations in the scope of railway network electrification? I think it is one of the more necessary investments in railway infrastructure in Indonesia, especially as I've previously mentioned, with recent and planned expansions outside of Java. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And your name is?
Hafiz Akbar from Universitas Indonesia.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for these questions. I will go one by one in the order they were asked. So Mr. Reiner asked about any hindrance vis-à-vis Southeast Asian countries after the Russia's invasion. I would shy away from talking about other countries, in this. Of course, I'll give you an example of Indonesia. I mentioned the resolutions in the General Assembly of the United Nations. Very much appreciating it, but we were, for instance, disappointed. We did not work hand in hand on the Human Rights Council votes, for instance, right? So there are always areas that we hope we could cooperate even more closely. But I didn't want to mention it because it's really those resolutions in the General Assembly were really vital, and we really appreciate it. And I think overall I would not call this a hindrance. We are here talking, you know, with our Indonesian partners, conducting political consultations in a really good atmosphere and a positive so I think the hindrance is maybe is not the proper word here. Of course, you know, there are some countries that have a traditional relationship with Russia that I think dates back generations, and sometimes they have been quite shy to really name the or to act in a more decisive. I think in a more decisive way, right? Russia is an aggressor state. It is trespassing all the rules. So we always hope that the countries that are devoted to the UN Charter's principles would stand up to always decisively defend those principles in public and behind closed doors on all different fronts. So, you know, there are countries in the world where we would wish this would happen more, but as I said, overall, in this as these resolutions in the UN General Assembly indicate, the global international community has been overall robustly and strongly aware of what Russia has done and condemned Russia for this. Indonesia, Poland programs. Now I could probably talk for a long time. Maybe I should ask the ambassador, but she will talk even longer. So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. But you mentioned maybe I refer to the think tanks idea also because His Excellency Ambassador suggested this cooperation. I think it's an excellent idea. I think I remember I worked in think tanks already. I started more than 20 years ago. And at the time, I was in Washington, and I remember Polish think tanks were really not at the time yet kind of at the top level. But I think, and I say this very honestly, that was my perception. But I think what has happened over the now more than 20 years is that we have seen a tremendous development of this kind of think tank and the strategic thinking and the environment. And we have, I believe that, and even you can even see it in the international rankings. The Polish Institute of Foreign Affairs is one of the absolutely one of the leading think tanks in Europe, and we have a Center for Eastern Policy, OSW, and the first one was PISM. These thinkers, I really often invite them for coffee, even at the ministry, to brainstorm. They have time to think, so I encourage you to do this also. And I think, especially, please note, in Poland we were warning about many things. We really understood certain phenomena, and I think our experts have a deep history and deep knowledge in this kind of very detailed, not an ideological way to think, but a kind of very detailed understanding of the region and of Russia also, and so on. So I very much think there is a fertile ground for intellectual exchange, and especially we would also be extremely interested to learn about your experience and know-how of this region in Asia and in Southeast Asia. But let me maybe mention a few more programs and opportunities. But I will not go through the whole list because I would talk endlessly. But I already mentioned education. I think it's tremendously important. We appreciate all kind of exchange both ways. Also, Polish students coming to Indonesia, learning about your fabulously interesting culture and about your country, and but we especially welcome also you to come to study in Poland or do research. Then there is a whole area of green energy transformation. Just today we opened a business forum in Jakarta, precisely in this area of green technologies. And please note that in Poland we were when communism collapsed in 1989, we really inherited a very polluted economy with very heavy industry, but very inefficient. The factories were just, and these areas and the lakes were polluted and seas polluted. Today it's extremely clean. I hope you come, you see, you can really, it's crystal clear waters in the sea and in the lakes and so on. But at that time, as a child growing up in Poland, I couldn't go even and swim. I was growing up by the sea. It was just so polluted, and the lakes likewise, and so on. So we made this tremendous transition, but and we adopted the very high European standards, European Union standards for climate change and so on. And these are our own standards now, but we had to, it was such a challenge, and we have so much experience in transition and also in technologies and so on. So I think it's a natural, given the challenges you are also facing, there is a lot of synergy for us, I think, to work together on this green transition projects and so on. I mentioned already the IT. Maybe I will not. I know you have a smart cities, very ambitious national programs to develop smart cities, or 100 of them even in the near future. But this is also an area of strength we have. So I think and culture extremely importantly. So I learned today that there's an Indonesian artist going to my hometown in Gdańsk. So it's a joy that the Polish people will be able to explore the Indonesian culture through this way. But the area of culture, we have had a very strong, in the 19th century, Poland was partitioned. We disappeared from the map. As I said, we were partitioned by Russia, Prussia, and Austro-Hungary, and Polish. So it was through culture that Poles found their expression. It was not through the political arrangements in the 19th century, and even more. It lasted longer. So the area of culture just is you'll see the classical music, Chopin, but you'll see jazz. You'll see a very strong movie, Polish film school. A tremendous theater tradition. For instance, we have one of the kind of oldest public theater tradition in Europe, because in Europe you had private theaters for the kings and so on and the princess, but in Poland we had our Grand Theater opened very early on. We opened the libraries as one of the first in Europe, kind of public libraries. So it's a culture. It's just not to mention literature and our how many 6 now, I think, Nobel Prize winners in literature, and so it's so many areas to explore in culture. Sorry, I probably give too long answers. No, I should be shorter. But this is the lack of sleep. My mind is a bit clouded. It's the railway. I must say that I took the railway through Java some years ago. It was so beautiful. The views. I keep them in my mind. The landscape. You are very used to it, but when somebody comes from the outside, it's just stunning. I am aware of the great development projects and also the development you mentioned Kalimantan and Java and we are. I do not want to delve into the details. I wouldn't have the competency to look at specifically the electrification of the railways, but I know that our companies oftentimes were very much involved in the procurement projects. For instance, in Africa, right? But they oftentimes it's not that they do it alone. They often do it with in partnership with some other country. So, and we have a very strong railway actually company tradition, and very robust companies and producing tramways and the wagons for the trains and the different switches for electricity grid and all this stuff. So this is, as I said, we are a very industrialized country. We are very successful in European markets, like the most demanding countries of Europe are also purchasing our products, and we are very much willing and ready to cooperate with Indonesian partners to explore those different opportunities. So if you have some, precise project ideas, I'll be very happy afterwards to talk.
Thank you, Minister. And I think just from his remarks alone, we have identified 2 action items, at least, Ambassador. First, think tank cooperation, and second, for Polish climate experts to come speak to Indonesia. I'd love to get some more questions in before we end. I see Ishana kept raising her hand, so Ishana can ask, and then the gentleman in red, and then the person at the very, very back. So.
Should I stand up? Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Ishana, and I'm from President University. And let me begin by saying that I've actually been to Poland back in 2015, and I had a good time. I enjoyed listening to a lot of disco polo. It's like our dangdut, and and I also enjoyed looking at brutalist buildings. Very fascinating. And actually, Your Excellency, you brought up collaborations in education, and I actually, before this one, I had one question ready, but I changed my mind, so I'm just gonna ask this new question. And actually, when I went to Poland, my first impression was that only the young generation could speak English well. The older generation couldn't really speak English well. So I had an impression that they understood German better. And also, I dealt with a lot of the old people when I was in Poland, and they would look at me in suspicion. And I also learned when I was in Poland that, correct me if I'm wrong, if it is still valid. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong if it is still valid, but I learned that in Poland, it is forbidden to name your children, to give your children Western names, as in like the names have to be Polish. And also, back in 2016, we had an advisor of President Andrzej Duda coming to FPCI and give a lecture, and I had an impression that he was very conservative. So I noticed that there has been a shift in education, in points of view towards the world, and also perhaps that shift, if there is a shift at all, has affected the way Poland has collaborated with Indonesia. And I would like you to explain that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then you can pass it over to the gentleman on the left.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Rio. I'm from Universitas Gadjah Mada. Both Indonesia and Poland has one among many similarities. That is, both of us are middle power countries. My question is, where will Poland position themselves on this current global landscape, being a middle country? And to be very specific, would Poland want or willing to join or create something like a multilateral group? For example, like Indonesia, we have MICTA, Mexico, Indonesia, Turkey, South Korea, and Australia, and probably something like that. Does Poland have that kind of foreign policy agenda regarding to being a middle power? Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Minister, we just launched a new department last week. It's the Middle Power Studies Network. So this question is very opportune. And the last question for this round, and then we'll see if we can get more questions for one final round.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Fatah. I'm from UIN Jakarta. In here, I want to ask about refugee from Ukraine. The question is, how Poland government give a guarantee from them, especially refugee or people Ukraine to in the Poland, like safety and security, like food, maybe that. Thank you.
Again, thanks for all these very important and good questions. So again, one by one, Mrs. Ishana, sorry for this, I'm doing the Ishana. Yes. I'm glad you had a good time in Poland and enjoyed the music scene and so on. And it is true that there is the English, the level of English language proficiency among the younger generation is so much more than my parents' generation. But I think already my generation already speaks English very well in general, and the people who are younger than me, it's just they speak really fluently in general, even in the smaller cities. But the older generation, of course, they never had the opportunity to learn. Many of them, they lived behind the Iron Curtain. I was also, when I went to school, I didn't have an opportunity to learn English. I had to learn Russian. It was forced on me. That was we didn't have really much choice there. But so let alone my parents' generation, that's so that's how it is. And I think when you are retired, and this was also a generation that experienced a very difficult economic transition. We had a shock therapy in the 1990s, very strong, free market. We had to do, because our economy was really. There was a joke saying that, not a joke, but it was really the reality that our communist reality was such that we had the best economist and the worst economy in the East Central Europe, and this was the starting point was so terrible. So the transition was very quick, and there was the level of unemployment was tremendous. People. Just found themselves suddenly at the mercy of the market. But what do you do if you are close to retirement, or you are already retired, and then you have this minuscule retirement? It was so there was a whole generation of people who had so much to worry about, let alone learn English. No, so it's I think I always admire the people, I must say, in the small towns, in the villages, and I look at this generation. They also. Many of them, some of them still, where they were children during the Second World War, they remember these times. But after the war, it was not easy either. No, so it was first the totalitarian regime under Stalinism, and then this very strong authoritarian regime under communism. So they had a hard life, and but for my generation, that was already later. We all jumped on learning English. We started late. But we had such a drive to really learn and so on, and then, our children are just so fluent. So it is the reality. Sorry, I'm giving too long answers. I know I'm not trying to avoid the last question. Then you have a. I don't know. I never heard that there are some names that are forbidden. It's a new information to me. My wife is not Polish. She just functions with her name. I don't know if there is some. I'm a little bit surprised, I must say, that there is some limitation on the names. But I don't know. We can get back to you on this. Then you mentioned President Duda and the kind of conservative values. Polish societies traditionally over the centuries has been. I mentioned this kind of being united in diversity, and the kind of and still being a tolerant country. We were always a nation bickering about political ideas, and we see it as a virtue of ours. Kind of that's our strength. But some people say that we are. Where there are two poles, there are three opinions. And there is others say that we are just at a peacetime. We just bicker with each other and quarrel, and during the wartime we unite. Then that's and then when the freedom comes again, we bicker again, and that's that's our probably argumentative nature. And I must say that the Polish society is very. Very diverse. You have people who are conservative. You have people who are liberal. Overall, if you compare Poland to some other Western European countries that have, for instance, abandoned religious faith, in Poland you can see that we are much more religious as people. So by virtue of this, you can call Polish society more conservative, of course, because the faith is kind of something that lasts from generation to generation. It's passed from generation to generation also, but also, for instance, the value of the family, right, as a unit. So I think that there has been especially, when you look at the European Union evolution and integration, it has been been a project that has been a little bit evolving. So for many years, it was a project where there were very clearly delimited spheres of engagement of the EU, where EU, for instance, dealt with trade issues, but did not delve into, let's say, moral or kind of socially sensitive issues of dealing with the kind of philosophy of life or religion or something. We can see that there is many people in Poland will perceive that the EU has been increasingly kind of slowly moving into this more sensitive issues, and this creates also a backlash in Poland, because Poles are very, for many years we were, as I said, under some other powers and so on, and others were dictating the way we have to be, right? So for instance, under the Prussian occupation in the 19th century, there was something called Kulturkampf. So the kind of liberal Protestant German very secular it was a very secular state, did not really like this kind of Polish Catholicism with the shrines and pilgrimages and all this kind of, and then it went on with the Polish kind of patriotic feelings. So there was a so there was a kind of an experience of our culture being fought from above, and the kind of so there is I would say there is an elevated sense of sovereignty in this realm, specifically in this realm, because in the issues that we delegate, for instance, in international trade, there is a lot of scope for cooperation. But in the issues like the whether liberal or conservative, we kind of see that we already bicker in Poland, and it's the right way, it's the right place to resolve it. But I think the tension is quite high. So I think maybe if you were listening about some kind of before a campaign statements, or you can really see that. But I think yes, we are more conservative society overall than many. That my wife is from Denmark, for instance. They are quite liberal compared to us in many ways. But in other ways, I would say our conservatism is very special, I think, because it's not a conservatism. People who are attached to the tradition of Poland. The Polish tradition, as I said, is this kind of commonwealth of many nations, of many cultures, of many religions. So you can be conservative, and I believe people are conservative, and at the same time very open-minded, very much welcoming to foreigners and so on. Anyways, I could talk about it for
middle power
for
now,
a
Minister.
long time. Yes. Middle power, Mr. Leo, right? That's yes. Middle current global landscape and the MIKTA. We very much appreciate different forms of cooperation with MIKTA. Even I had a dinner recently in Warsaw in the MIKTA kind of setting with colleagues from the ambassadors posted to Warsaw. But our foreign minister in the United Nations, when he had a meeting, was in the MIKTA for MIKTA also arrangement. So it's we very much appreciate. I think we are interested in pursuing it. But MIKTA are all G20 members, right? It's we are not. We are economically we should be already there, but it would be that would be nice to be member of the G20, I think. But we are very much interested in developing relations with Indonesia and Mexico, and we have had a very strong, robust development of relations with Korea. Traditionally, we are we have a traditionally centuries, I think, like more than 600 years of diplomatic relations with Turkey, and a very special relationship with Turkey and Australia, and so on. So it's very much interested in all different forms of cooperation. For us, for many years, the fundamental point of reference has been our membership in the European Union and in NATO. So that's but it doesn't mean that we are not open to all different other arrangements. Even in East Central European region, we have the so-called 3Cs initiative, where we have the kind of infrastructure network in connectivity and railways and roads and pipelines and so on, and the cybersecurity to strengthen the kind of the connections within the region. And many the Visegrad format, the Bucharest 9 format, the Lublin Triangle, you know, all different. We also a member of the Weimar Triangle with Germany and France and so plenty. Very much. I think it's very important to work in all these different formats. And finally, the refugees. I probably have little time, right? Because you're. Yes. Okay. So I'll just say very briefly. You know, many people in Poland don't even prefer to call the Ukrainian people who come as Ukrainian friends, right? And not even we don't. Many of them are refugees, but we really want to welcome them to our homes and very much want them to feel safe and secure. That's what I am personally very touched in my heart that it came in my life to see my countrymen to provide this kind of security to, in a vast majority, women and children, right? They came often without, you know, very quickly leaving their homes and so on. You probably saw these pictures, right, with the you know, people reacting very quickly, taking them home. So we want to feel them to feel safe and secure, and I believe that they will be safe and secure. I don't think it's a question. We are a very strong country and a strong economy, and we have a very strong military. We are in the biggest military alliance on earth, NATO. We have very good prospects for growth, and we will provide them security. And one day they will choose, you know, they will be free to return to their country, free, and Ukraine within their internationally recognized borders and sovereign Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you so much for your time that you have spent with us. Please give a round of applause for the Minister. Especially noting that you are suffering from a jet lag and you just answered tens of questions in a row. So thank you very much. I think we learned a great deal about Poland and Polish foreign policy in this 2 hours event. I'm sure that friends at the Polish embassy would love to answer any of your questions if there are any remaining left. Please talk to FPCI people, and then we'll make sure to forward it to Ambassador and friends at the embassy. With that, let me close this event. And again, on behalf of FPCI, thank you, Minister. We hope that you can enjoy the rest of your time here.
Again, thank you, Minister Wojciech Gerwel. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Right, I exercised multiple times. Right, so to close today's event, we would like to take some pictures. First, I'll invite Pamadi, Ambassador Stozinska, Mr. Piotr Furlus. Is he here? It's okay, yeah. To stand up, and we'll take a picture. And then Mr. Piotr Furlus also. Pak Lucas. Right. In the count of 3. After this, we'll take a picture with the audience. Okay, one more time. Since we're going to take a picture with the audience, I invite everybody back to the seat and we'll take a picture from here. Mr. Piotr Furlus, you should be there too. Let me take a pic for you. Up, thumbs up. Okay. Perfect. All right, thank you very much once again, Minister Wojciech Gerwel, Ambassador Stozinska, Pak Madi, Mr. Piotr Furlus, Moderator Esther, and everybody who are attending here. This public lecture is available for rewatch in our YouTube. All right, thank you very much. See you in our next event.